NBA players that barely made the cut. The NBA is one of the most exclusive professional leagues in all of sports. There are only 60 players from all over the globe drafted into the league each year, and only around 450 players in the league at any given time. According to research done by the National Association for Sport and Physical Education, if you play basketball in high school, your odds are around 3 in 10,000, or 0.03% of making the NBA. According to research done by the NCAA, even if you go on to play basketball in college, you still have very slim odds of making it to the league. According to their statistics, a college basketball player has a 1.2% chance of making the NBA, and a 21% chance of playing in any other professional basketball league. This makes the feat of just being a part of the NBA something that is truly incredible, and defying these stacked odds is one of the factors as to why you see many players being so emotional when they are drafted. Today, we will be looking at some of the players who are riding the line of making the league, and how they clawed their way into the NBA, with NBA players who barely made the cut. Jonathan Simmons. The first player that we'll be covering has one of the most inspiring and hard-fought roads to the NBA. That player is Jonathan Simmons. The San Antonio Spurs G League affiliate team, the Austin Toros, were holding an open tryout for a team to see if scouting and coaching departments could find any diamonds in the rough that they could take a long shot on. With the keen eye of talent in the Toros and Spurs front office staffs, along with an NBA caliber player walking into their doors, they would go on to sign Simmons. The tryout cost $150 to even be a part of, and at the time, Simmons was struggling to even afford diapers for his young daughter. As a result of this, he had to borrow money just to be a part of the tryout. It seemed as if everyone around Simmons knew that he had the talent to play basketball at a professional level. However, they did not believe he was currently or would ever get the right person to see him play, or the exposure that he needed to make the jump to the league. Even his own mother said that she was trying to push him in the direction of a career cutting hair during the offseason of his semi-pro leagues. The tryout consisted of grueling workouts, and are still a big way that the coaching staff of the now San Antonio Toros weed out players that are not made for their team. The tryout consisted of 6 consecutive hours of coaches putting the hopeful players through grueling drills. The Toros and Spurs higher-ups said that it only took minutes before they knew that Simmons was head and shoulders above any of the other competition at the tryouts. It is very possible that Simmons could have stayed in college and been drafted in the 2013 draft. However, with the pressure of 3 daughters weighing on his shoulders, he went against the advice of his coach and declared for the 2012 NBA draft. At this time, Simmons said that he did not know about the D-League or overseas options of playing professional basketball, so instead, he was forced to play on a semi-pro team out of Houston. Playing games in high school gyms night in and night out really got to Simmons, and let him know just how far he was from being in the NBA. Along with this, he had to see players that he played with and against in college go on to be drafted and be a part of the D-League or Summer League teams, after Simmons had outperformed them in college. Simmons stayed grinding in the D-League until the 2014-2015 season, when very late into the year, while Simmons was playing for the Brooklyn Nets D-League team, the San Antonio Spurs finally offered him his first NBA contract. Simmons spent 4 seasons in the NBA, and is currently a free agent, who could end up finding himself back in the league next season. During his time in the league, he averaged 8.3 points per game, 2.4 rebounds a game, and 1.9 assists a game. Also, he went from not being able to pay for a tryout and struggling to afford diapers for his daughter to amassing $13,699,729 while in the league. Isaiah Thomas. The next player that we will be covering is one of the smallest players to have major success in the NBA. He went from being Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the 2011 NBA draft, to a player that was a real MVP candidate. That player is the king in the fourth, standing at 5 feet and 9 inches, Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas was one of the most talented players in his draft class, as he went on to show, and was a much better player than many of the players drafted in front of him in the 2011 draft. However, because of his height and the skepticism that it caused, he would go on to be the last pick of his draft class. In an interview about the situation, Thomas was quoted as saying, "All I wanted was a chance. That's all I needed. I will take care of the rest because I prepared myself for that moment, no matter if it was training camp or if it was being the water boy. If I was going to be water boy, I was going to be the best water boy there was." When Thomas came into the league, he signed a 3-year rookie minimum deal with the Sacramento Kings. However, they would trade him after just 3 seasons with the team, in a deal that sent him to the Phoenix Suns in return for Alex Oriaki. This is a deal that, with hindsight we have now, is very laughable. Thomas would only last a single season with the Suns that had quite a logjam at the point guard position during this time. While Thomas was on the roster, he was fighting for minutes with much more established players at the time like Goran Dragic and Eric Bledsoe. After his year with the Suns, Thomas was once again traded to the Boston Celtics, where he would become one of the best players in the league for a short stretch. He took the league by storm with his incredible scoring ability and clear clutch gene, which earned him the previously stated nickname, the King in the Fourth. However, after playing through a hip injury, Boston turned their back on the leader of their team, along with the player that played for their team shortly after the death of his sister. Thomas was traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, along with Jay Crowder, and the pick that would become Colin Sexton, in exchange for Kyrie Irving. In only half a season, Thomas would then be traded from the Cavs to the Los Angeles Lakers, in a trade that would send him and Channing Frye to the Lakers in exchange for Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. After the Lakers, he would play for the Nuggets for a year, then the Wizards for a year. Thomas is another amazing story of barely making the cut to the NBA to becoming one of the best in the league, and the face of one of the best franchises in the league for a moment. Carmelo Anthony. The next player in this list has a different story than any other player we will be covering today. That player is Carmelo Anthony. Melo was one of the best players in the league and one of the more dominant scorers that the game has ever seen. His multi-level scoring, along with the level of athleticism that he had in his prime, made him one of the most unguardable players in the NBA. However, once he passed his prime is when he barely made the cut to be in the league. Melo, once his time with the New York Knicks was up, took a look at where his career was and saw that it was time for him to join a contender. This is a very common thing that veterans will do. However, as a result of him not quite being the player that he once was, he will not be the first or even second option on any team that has any hope of contending for an NBA title. However, for a while, Melo's ego would not allow him to take on a lesser role. Both in his stints with the Oklahoma City Thunder with Paul George and Russell Westbrook, and with the Houston Rockets teaming up with James Harden and longtime friend Chris Paul, Melo would not last long with the teams, as it was alleged that he was a locker room cancer, as well as being too ball dominant on offense and refusing to take a lesser role on the team. After its time with the Rockets, there was a long stint in which Melo could not find any way onto another NBA roster, as he did not ideally fit in any situation. He could not play for a team that was tanking, because there are nights that Melo still shows flashes of his prime, and would win teams a couple of extra games that could lead them to take away from the best odds of winning the lottery, to landing the 4th or 5th pick. As he showed on the Rockets and the Thunder, he was too demanding of a key role on the team, and takes the ball out of the hands of the true stars on the team that will be crucial in winning the team a championship. Pairing this with the fact that rumors have swirled about Melo being a locker room cancer and a bad teammate for years, a championship caliber team would not want to take the risk and add unnecessary media attention on their team for that level of player they would be getting in Melo at the current age that he is. However, Melo eventually found his happy medium and was signed to the Portland Trail Blazers this season. The Blazers do not have many at the forward position who are skilled on the offensive side of the ball, and as a result of this, Melo has been able to slide right into that role on offense. Pairing this with the fact that if this went poorly, he would be forced to retire from the league, Melo has from all accounts been a great teammate on the Blazers, and has played his role very well. So well, in fact, that the Blazers made a late season run in the bubble and became the 8th seed in the Western Conference, after being all but eliminated from the playoffs when the season resumed. Ben Wallace. The final player that we will be covering today is Ben Wallace. Wallace went from being undrafted to being a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, and one of the best defenders in the 2000s. Wallace went to college at Virginia Union University. With his school being largely unknown, there were not many eyes on Wallace or scouts attending his games. However, once he got his chance in the league, he took full advantage of it. He first played for the Washington Bullets, that became the Washington Wizards. He then made his way to the Detroit Pistons, where his career would take off. The Pistons were a team that was built around defense, and Wallace fit right into that system. He was never a player who really dominated the game from a scoring aspect, but he was so skilled and tirelessly defended anyone that the opposing team put in front of him that it was more than enough to get him paid and enough to get his name in the national spotlight. Along with this, Wallace and his Pistons teammates had very low egos, and were humble players just focused on winning. They each played a role in the system. As a result of this, the team really is the only team in recent memory that has won a title without there being one clear best player or superstar caliber player on the roster. The Pistons team was enough to beat a Shaq and Kobe-led Lakers in the 2003-2004 NBA Finals. Wallace went on to have a long career in the league, and make all the teams that passed on him in the draft regret their decision. Final thoughts. In conclusion, there are many paths to the NBA, and some of the best players in the league were passed over and had to claw their way into the NBA. barely making the cut. Whether they have to try out for a D-League team like Jonathan Simmons, being the last pick in the draft like Isaiah Thomas, having to reinvent their entire game like Carmelo Anthony, or being undrafted like Ben Wallace. Thank you for watching another UpNext Sports video. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment about other players that had to claw their way into the league, and join us next time for more basketball content similar to this.